So there's a number of steps that we'll just quickly summarize tonight, and at the end, we prepared a memo that provides the town, and sort of gives a step-by-step process of what we might do next to develop this property. And first, we had to look at the buildings. Once we looked at the building, there were several different options available. We looked at whether it's a renovation, whether it's a partial renovation, or whether it's a complete shakedown of the building and a replacement of the building in kind. Those are the three options that we looked at. The building's quite old. As you know, it's the centerpiece of the school campus, former Gate School campus. We're looking at the center building. The left side on the screen there is obviously the gym and the recreation departments in the wing behind the gym. The building was built in 1917. In the first phase, it's the center section of the Gates Middle School. And then in 1930, I'm sorry, they put a roof on the building, gave it a classical portico, built two adjacent wings on each side of the building. So the original building centerpiece is over 100 years old, and the main portion of this building is approaching 100 years. It's 96 years old today. This shows a rendering of that first slide, that what's in the sort of greenish tint is that lower portion of the building, and that's what we're studying. The recreation department's in the ground floor of the rear wing by the tennis courts, and the gym and the fitness program is in the gymnasium on the far left of that screen, and then obviously the senior center is on this side. So we did look at the other wing where the recreation department is. They don't use the whole building. It's very complicated to mix municipal offices and housing and the fire ratings and the building codes, and the whole arrangement back there didn't really work out, and that's why we confined the study to this front portion that's the light green color slide. What makes the project a little bit more complicated is there are many levels in the building, and as you can see, the main floor of the existing building is a full 6 feet above the ground floor, which means that the basement level, or the first floor of that school, which would be housing, is 4 feet below grade. So you have a level that's halfway into the ground and then 2 levels above the ground to use. The level below grade has got some issues that Jeremy will walk you through. But the other issue is that there are many different floor levels in the building. Not only do you have to get from the grade outside up to the main level of the building, but you have to get within the building. That center lower picture shows there's ramps in the various wings that make it so the floor levels don't line up well, and it's not fully accessible today. The option that's a little difficult to explain, but we were asked, since the building is the age that it is, almost 100 years old from the last major renovation, is there an option to replace it in kind? And in an in-kind renovation, we would bring the lower level up to grade, so it would no longer be stuck in the ground. You would have a building that looks similar to this, not exactly similar. It would be 3 full stories, and it was a worthwhile option to investigate. So it's one of the 3 options. So option 1 is renovating the existing school building. Option 2 takes a renovation of the existing building and then adds on to it. And then option 3 is to build that in-kind building. And all of these are sort of studied as a rental and as a condominium project. And the reason that we're doing this study is that it'll help the town narrow down their options, so that when you go out for developers request for proposal to do a joint venture project where the town contributes the building in some manner, and the developer develops it and can take advantage of the tax credits, you can narrow down what that ask is and, of the developer, so you know what they're proposing. Jeremy, do you want to walk us through the
of course.
options relatively quickly?
Yes, so this is, as Joel mentioned, we have three approaches to this. The first one will be just a renovation of the existing building. You see, it's what's already there, it's what's in yellow. What's circled in red is where we need to add additional parking. So I think the parking need for the site is one space for each bedroom. And in this plan, we have 34 one-bedroom units, kind of the size of a existing classroom. Makes it kind of, it's a good size for about a one-bedroom unit. So we need to add 34 roughly parking spaces, and we can kind of tuck them in, add a couple to the existing parking lot for the senior center, add a few along the road, on the side of the ball field there. Not a lot of site work. And this is the lower level that Joe mentions. Basically, what's in blue is kind of areas that we can't use for housing. And the big center block is that area that's 6 feet or so, 4 to 6 feet below the ground. And it's also, there's no windows there, so we can't really use that for housing. But possibly we can get some amenity spaces in there, and the site in the lower half of that block, we have storage and the site. That's where all the existing boilers are, heaters, equipment. So it's not a nice place to put in that situation. And then there's also a lot of asbestos throughout the existing to deal with a renovation. Here's kind of a typical floor. You can see all the different places, all the different units you can get in. I forgot how many are in each floor, but total is 34 units. There's option 2, where we renovate the existing buildings. Everything we did in option 1, we spoke about, and then an additional building on the back side of the site. This one we have 64 units total. So we'll keep the same unit mix in the existing building, 34 one bedroom, 2 and 3s. And obviously more units, we need more parking spaces. So we're looking at adding new parking spaces to the existing senior center site, adding a few below the new addition, adding a larger parking space, parking lot, where the existing tennis courts are. So to do this, we'll have to lose 2 tennis courts and kind of revise the fields. So I think the walking path, the soccer field, we're going to keep that at roughly the same size. So we turn that 2 degrees, we can kind of fit it up the rest of the site.
So this is all driven by trying to create a project that's of scale that would be interesting to a developer. 34 unit renovation is one thing, a 68 unit or larger is generally more favorable. What's really nice about the scheme is it has a courtyard between the existing building and the new building, so it creates a space for the residential folks that's separate from the recreational. There's a nice separation of your public and private spaces, given that this is a campus of mixed use between all those different functions. Sorry, Jeremy.
No worries. And this is the typical floor plan. So like I said, the existing building will be kind of the same amount of one bedroom units, and we'll have a lot of new 2 and 3 bedroom units in the new addition. And we looked at this at 2 different sizes. One, we'll get a few more units with the condo rental, but Dave can go with that a little more in depth later. Right. So this will be the smaller addition we can put on if we do go to rental, but in the new building we do the same thing on 2 and 3 bedrooms. And this is take the existing building down replaced it in somewhat kind and then expanded out back. It's kind of almost connecting the first two options. New building. And this will be 66 units here, and it'll be a full mix of 1 bed, 2 beds, 3 beds. 40 some odd percent 2 beds, 33% 1 bed, 22%. And then this treats the field of the tenants in a kind of a similar way to get all the parking stuff. For this, we need 77 spaces. Slightly bigger parking. Typical floor plan. You know, we have 1s, 2s, and 3s on each floor.
But the beauty of, if you like the new building, is you're not confined to a classroom. So now your apartments can be what they want to be, even though the building looks like the existing building on the outside. The bearing walls are gone, and you have a lot more freedom in terms of your layout. David.
Okay, well,
each one of these options was priced out by a cost estimator that does work for developers. So it's not Chapter 139 work once you do this kind of 40B project. So this is a cost estimate that provides the financial cost data that David can then put into a pro forma and show you how these different scenarios perform. Developer happens to be in the next town over, so look familiar with local costs and practice.
well, I think just to be clear, you know, the one takeaway in terms of the cost estimates is that it's a little, maybe 10% less expensive to build new. To try to sure you're starting, but you know, that's part of a larger equation. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the work I did here, but first I want to preface it, since you use the term "can choose it forward." I think, you know, part of what's important to get across tonight is that we're not saying that these are the only options by any means. We're just saying, you know, could something be done here that's workable, that's marketable, that's financially feasible? And, you know, ultimately, you know, you put out an RFP and see who came. My suggestion is that you leave the parameters pretty broad and not just say only condos or only seniors. In fact, the seniors in a second, or you know, only rent, whatever, and see who comes in. And it might be that, you know, somebody comes to you and says, well, you know, I see your feasibility work, but I can do this, you know, a totally different way, and you know, that appeals to you. So leave the door open, but you know, you're probably going to have certain threshold, you know, non-negotiables, like we don't only want to lease the land, or we're open to dividing the land and deeding over some of it, some covenants about affordability, and you might say, well, we want at least $1 million for the site, or $9 million or nothing, you know, we're agnostic. So I think, you know, leaving the door open to a lot of things is the way I would suggest. And we talked about, okay, condos and rentals. We talked about rehabbing construction and mix. We talked about, I think, the fact that any of the scenarios that I think we want to pursue here, my understanding is that the one proposal is to get all the units to count under the mass, wants Chapter 40B. So to do that, you have to have at least 25% and be affordable. Affordable is defined a little differently if you do the rental versus owner. You know, the income threshold or ceilings for first-time buyers in a condo, about 80% of the rentals usually top out at 60, and you know, that's somewhat 30%. To put that in perspective, I think, you know, on the rental side for family and employees, might have a range of incomes between, say, you know, 30 and 90,000 ownership side, and closer to 120. That's the ceiling. You know, we talked about bedroom mixes and trying to have more larger units, particularly if you go for rental. The funders for the state are going to push you in that direction. You know that there might be some sentiments about senior housing, and again, a I will qualify, but I'm agnostic here. You know, that, you already have a relatively new senior developer here, I think, Boston Green, and which received a state tax credit award about 4 or 5 years ago, I think. And so it's pretty unlikely, in my experience, that the state is going to come back and give you another chunk of financial assistance for senior housing. Since most of their priorities are towards the larger units. You can good try, but I'm just saying I think it's a stretch, just in terms of feasibility. We also, you know, coming back to the notion of what's the disposition of the land? Is it by deed or is it by lease? You know, you want to lease the land. I think that's a little harder if you go in the condo route because I'm 65 years into ownership and I want to sell. You go for mortgage and the bank says, well, no, I don't think you're the owner of the company because you don't take it back. So I would suggest that if you are open to some kind of condo situation, then in the RFP, you say to the proponents, you know, you tell us about this position and tell us, you know, what might work. You're inclined to keep it on a leasehold basis, but you know, you understand that maybe that doesn't work. Talk to your attorney. You know, have your attorney weigh in on this because you know someone like us, you know, we have anecdotes, but we're not looking at the statutes on the law. To come back to numbers, my sense is that condominium direction would be a little more financially feasible because the market rate units, and we price things based on looking at actual sales. Had an appraiser give me some information, and we threw out all the ones that were overlooking the and in 2-family houses. And, you know, also talking to Sue Queso, who I think is a local realtor here. And when you have in the ownership structure, you can get, let's say, between 1, 2, or 3 bedroom units, you know, $550 to maybe close to $800,000 for 1, 2, 3 here. So that the market units help subsidize the affordable units. Okay? Also, it's much quicker to get what let's call soft money from the state for the ownership because you don't need as much. And there's a big 2-3 year delay if you want to do a rental project, no matter how much merit it has. You know, that will slow things down. And does that mean that construction prices keep going up, the interest rates come down, or is it the reverse? I mean, you're all in the field where things move around all the time. So you know how that is. I think I'm winding down. As I said, on the rental side, we
Just move the mic over. They're having trouble on TV here. Sorry, it's not you.
all right, I'm sorry if I.
No, that's also negative.
So, you know, on the rental side, as I said, it takes longer, it requires a lot more subsidy. I would assume that whether we go with rental or condo, that town will have to be able to chip in some money through the CPC or otherwise. Partly because the state looks for local match, and partly because the developer's going to need some, you know, extra money. I think with the rental, you have a smaller project, which to the extent that you're trying to, you know, boost up your 40B count works against you, but the subsidies for rental is sort of top out. You know, so if I can only get $1 million from this program, building 30 units versus 60 units, you know, it's not quite as a stretch. And let's see. I think I have covered most of what I want to say. Unless someone's going to pull my shirt down and tell me I need. Oh, the other thing is we talked among ourselves about the use of historic tax credits, which is independent of other resources. And you can only use those in a rental project, obviously, you couldn't do them in the new construction, you know, where it's all new construction, but you can tie into the renovation of the building, so that could add some money. You do not, otherwise you can't use those in owner occupies.
Right, and I wanted to mention the tax credits as well, is the advantage of, you know, having a developer be a partner is that entity is eligible for the historic tax credits and the affordable housing tax credits, what makes the project affordable, whereas if the town does the development themselves to avoid having to split off property with tax credits on. But I think what David's getting at is that in order to do a condominium project, you'd have to figure out how to make that center portion of the building sit on a lot that would meet the requirements of the zoning bylaws. So it's not impossible to put a lot line through the building between the recreation department and the gate school, but it's something that would have to be figured out. Where we were going at the end is we had a memo of next steps, which you saw, and the first one would be to decide how to write an RFP for this project. And we sort of put in the most aggressive timeline we could think of. You could always go longer, but we said if you make a decision about which way to dispose of the land, that has to go to town meeting. And you would have to sort of make that decision early fall or in advance of whenever town meeting you wanted to bring that up for vote. You know, you want to have a meeting with that.
No, I think that you all know that disposition process generally, and you know, it's somewhat pretty well regulated.
Then you'd have to prepare the RFP for the proposals once you knew that the disposition was approved by the community to do this project. Developer would respond, the developer awards. It's basically a 3-year timeline for whenever you start the process to get the project starting construction. And then construction is another 18, 24 months time. So that will.
Yeah, can you, I'll open it up, but can you just kind of go over a bit more on the financials for those 3 different options, kind of, I don't know, it's like a per unit cost, but I know it was in there. Can you just quickly go through those 3, what we're kind of thinking for, per unit or?
Well, they're really, you know, really 6 because we looked at 3 owner, 3 rentals. But, you know, for the most part, we were looking at per unit cost of about, you know, $550, $575. A lot of that is, as you might imagine, driven by construction costs. Our estimator was putting that at 306 for new construction and maybe 335 or so for renovations in the existing building.
So John, so when I'm saying the option 1, C1 renovation, 19 million, and then this is like an eye test.
Yeah.
So 27 or 37 for 2?
37.
37 and then 39. So is that, yeah, I'm a simple man. I'm trying to be as clear, because this whole thing is not, as we see, is not clear. Is this what we would be asking residents? Is this town and construction companies? Would it be
That's the total cost.
total cost?
Total cost of what they would want to do out there. And then depending on what we were proposing or what we were asking, the developer would be looking, just as we did in Lost Green, would be looking for us to put up something, or to make the, so he can get the flow because it would be on some on rare rent. So that would depend upon which one we pick, what else he got for tax credits, what else he got for, she got historic credit, so that would really depend on which option we choose, what the market looked like when we got there. But there would be a contribution. Now, what do we put up?
Well, what I,
1.2.
what I put in here, because I don't know exactly how much you really have to play with it, know that you have other uses for the money. I penciled in $2 million, and, bearing in mind that particularly in a smaller pool like this, that might be a heavy lift, and maybe it comes in over 2-3 years during the construction period. So, that's something to work out with the developer, but, and as I said earlier, the state is going to want to see not a dollar for dollar match, but, something more than they said.
So our cost on last week, we put up $1.2 million. That was grant,
No,
was it?
And we gave them the land.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
and
Well,
which
that's
is huge,
huge.
and they didn't have to do demolition of any kind.
Yeah.
So that was a good deal for all of us.
Yeah.
really.
I think, the idea, performance that I ran, projects that I ran, I had no acquisition, but that's not to say you couldn't leave that as an open question, which I would, if I were in your shoes, that's what I would do. I would say, make us an offer.
So that the cost that you pay would be offset by the disposition costs.
I mean,
Well,
in a sense, it's,
The more the developer paid you for the land, the more they run back on the other side. So it could cut both ways.
yeah.
I have more, I'll come back, and we'll go here, and then we'll have the public, ask some questions, but.
It's hard for me to contemplate a question at this point. The options are there, which is a 3-year. I think the decision has to be when do you think this is going to go? Because then you have to see what the market's going to do for it. And is it apartments? Is it condos? There's so many variables here that it's I don't have any questions at this point because there's just too much in the air.
Yeah.
Too many unanswers.
And I want to stress that I think that's just the nature of,
Indeed.
yeah.
Personally, my thought would be to, if we're gonna do it as big as you can. I would think that. Do it small, the town's always gonna be saying, well, why did they want to do that? Losing a couple of tennis courts, they can find another place for some tennis courts. I'm not worried about that. But the idea of building a whole new, I think to a developer, that's gonna be more appealing. Take it all down, build up a replication, but make it all modern and new, no skeletons, no surprises. I mean, more in their line of what they do, their standards. That, I think, you're probably the most optimal where you get the most price. I don't know. If I-
No, that's good. I mean, all this is taking it all in.
Well, I guess where I'm just jumping in the comments, I'm pleased to see we've reached a point where we've decided it's house. Because we've been batting around a whole bunch of other possibilities for a while. I also just on a personal level would be more in favor of trying to add some units that are not just little one-bedroom units. As lovely as Lost Creek is, they're very small. And so I think that if we're looking at the affordability committee to attract teachers, young professionals, that sort of thing, I think we need to look at not even just 2 bedrooms, but 3 bedrooms. And I also think that it's a beautiful part of town. It's very attractive. And so I feel as though it has a lot more appeal than some developments that wind up in less than optimal places. And there are already amenities there, which is great. And I would personally like to see us knit together that campus with Central School, with the ball field that's over there, with the library. And we've already got a walk all the way down, decent sidewalk from there down to the harbor. So I think it's potentially very attractive if we do the right thing. Having said that, I'm also aware of the neighbors. I think we have to be sensitive to they may not want some all of a sudden hulking building or two hulking buildings in what they consider a very, you know, low-key area, but that's for, you know, confusion. But and it's the financing that's the problem. So,
Could I ask one question? Sorry. What is it costing us right now to take care of the building in its existing condition for animal? Heat, lights, insurance, ballpark. Vacant with ghosts.
It's approaching 6 figures a year. For heat, electricity, and it's a very old building that requires a lot of maintenance.
so you're saying 90,000, is that what you're saying, approaching 6?
Yes, yeah, I try to get it off the top of my head, so it's in the neighborhood of 90 to 100,000.
Yeah, I remember 80s, but
Yeah.
that was years ago, around that.
So that we're just continuing to, but how long has it been vacant so far?
5 years, 6 years.
So we're already $500,000
I've
behind.
been here 6 and was vacant before I got this.
So it's almost 700,000 to the wind, which is, I think we have to keep it.
Well, the
secure.
food pantries have to change.
And we're lucky to have
It's very happy.
Yes.
very
And the rec
expensive.
department is happening there, and I know we're not talking about that facility, but there's a lot of life over there still.
You would just see yourself.
Yes, please. Thank you very much for all of this work. This is exactly what they should be about. We needed this because when we were trying to cite the senior center originally, we looked at lots of different options. And one option that the community wasn't too thrilled with was to remove the building entirely. So I have a question, and it's completely out of the scope, but you looked at the site, you guys, what you guys do, right? An option we have not considered, and I would think any of these options, we're either gonna lose the tennis court, we're gonna lose some of the field. There are additional site costs that would probably be outside of this original scope. So let's say you go with a big development, and you can gerrymander, I know there's somebody in the back that we're considering needs more parking. It's gonna encroach on that bit, which means we're then faced with do we build it into, that's way down the scope of the business plan. So those costs are there. So, that thing, the question is, anyone who has made up, please do not throw this out. The original idea of moving that building because, 100% because of cost. Would you think that you could cite something else on that parcel that would enhance the site rather than trying to go with that? Have you even thought about that at all? If you were given free reign on the site?
We didn't look at that.
I know it's outside the scope.
So you're saying if you didn't try to fit within the existing footprint, would you have some greater flexibility?
Yeah.
I mean, we can take a look at it. I think that one of the things that we've found out of working on this some more is that the space that's made by the school and the senior center and the gym is actually quite a nice space with the church, and then all speaks, those buildings speak to each other nicely and make an appropriate public space for the building, and you know, that there's sort of a nice connection to the fields, and I don't know, I'm sure that moving the building could come up with an equally good site plan. This one, I think, happens to be quite nice as well.
Because the continuity between the buildings.
Well, not only the continuity of buildings, but the way they make the town green type space.
You know, and as I recall, the original cost of it, that was 6 years ago, was just the great rain 6 years ago because of asbestos. So
Yeah.
if this board, you know, thought, you know what? We put out an RFP and no one bites. We still have question about it. You're carrying the buildings empty, it's been liability. I really think we have to have that in the next conversation.
Wanted to, maybe that's a question, but I'm gonna continue on this line of thought. You do this for a living. This seems like a complicated project. And I think what Karen's trying to get out, if I'm wrong. We have limited resources. Given the complexity, does this seem like an appropriate site given the complexity? Or, no, if you were in our seats, you say, hey, you could probably do a better place someplace else and accommodate 50 units, 60 units, given how expensive this may be. Or, because I look at these numbers and I'm getting scared at $500,000, close to 600,000 when we're done for one unit. Given that everything goes up. I mean, again, you do this all the time. Is this really the appropriate place? Or do you think, given if we had another area, maybe accommodate more people? I know it's pretty, I know it's nice, but this town is just appropriate close to $250 million on other projects. Like how difficult is this compared to other ones where it's like, nah, we can do this, this is that. That's the clarity I guess I don't have. Because everything I've heard is there's expensive, it's difficult, it's there. Everyone tells us just do something with it. But is this really easy, not easy, or would you be looking someplace else? Sorry, that's.
Well, I think the easy part of it is that by going to a developer, it takes the town out of the equation. You do have some costs, but you're not renovating the building, you're not having to take the building down. So the goal of this was in part, what's your least cost option for doing something on this site, which the developer partnership is the answer to that question. And it allows the work to be done in a non-Chapter 149 process, which is still expensive. The reason those units are 500,000 is that it costs 330 to renovate the units, and there's other costs that go into the project. So the numbers are what they are. Is there another site in Scituate that's better? I don't know, but I think the question is going to come out of the public process about how big of a building might fit on the site. But I think that it's there's probably aren't that many sites that are as nice as this in communities for affordable housing. This would be one of the nicer projects and one of the more attractive, I think.
So you think the developer is gonna and going on this?
I think the development community will be very interested in whether they can overcome the difficulties in building. But it's the right town, it's the right location, it's a beautiful demographic.
Everything you've seen, they think they can overcome, even with those high price points. Because I want to balance, maybe if we're gonna do this affordable.
If I may, I think you're not committing until someone comes in and you're leaving the door open to say, we haven't got 3 bids, we don't like any of them. You know, you look at it, this is not, as I understand it, you're going to take a low bid or a high bid or whatever. And I understand your sticker shock. I started out in this business was 40,000 units. So, but that's what it is. And frankly, to the extent that you're suggesting that maybe there's a nicer site, I think all sites come with something, and including neighbors. And so I don't know. I mean, I don't know town. I don't live here, so but I think it's worth a try and see who shows up. What they say. So if they say, well, the only way we can make this work is to go 8 stories up, well, maybe that's not the deal.
Yeah, I wanted that clarity of, is this really something, or you actually think we said this before, if I give it to someone for $1, you're doing it. And some of these other contractors are like, I wouldn't touch it. They're like, see you later. I said, no. Like, so now we're saying, this is.
We did have one developer look at it and he said, yeah, it's doable. but the more additional units he can build, the cost goes down, because the cost of renovating those units is gonna be high.
Right.
That was kind of a back of the envelope, but he said, oh yeah, absolutely, it'd be better if you took it down and build everything new, as we talked about, but you could definitely do something there, it really depends upon what you wanna do.
There are specific developers that are keen on that type of work. They're out there, and they know how to do it. Who did Meeting House? That was Suffolk, wasn't it?
Well, the, Blossom Green,
No, Meeting House, the last big one that
It
was
was
done.
like, what, 30 years ago?
Yeah, that was Suffolk's first time.
Grantham Group that did Blossom Green, I don't know who did.
So I mean, there's some good companies around it. But they're gonna look for, like you said, the more they can build. And then can they fit it in?
Again, the question was, could you do housing there? Because your options are do nothing, which is not an option. Municipal use, which again, we talked about a town hall, but I don't think this board or the town has an appetite to spend that kind of money. I don't want to stand up, try to push that one. Or housing, so the question was, well, is housing feasible? The answer is yes. Now the board's gonna have to have conversations, which of those roads do we want to get out? We want to do housing, we want to just tear it down and leave it open space. Really, that's really what it comes down to. It's the option of municipal use because of the costs.
If we were to tear it down, we would have to pay to tear it down.
That's
And
not
restore it to some suitable looking flora and fauna area.
It could also be to demolish the building, bring it back, and also, I know Kevin Kelly has a number for that. You would have to put heating source of hot water in the A-wing and the gym, because right now they're coming out of the heating.
really.
As opposed to doing some sort of an advertisement, seeing what developers would be interested in, bringing their people in and giving final suggestions, what they think they can do for X, for land control, for the lease versus whatever.
So, one question.
Sure.
So because this would be likely put out as sort of traffic 48, then the density and all of those restrictions that would be in zone, the residential zoning would be superseded.
The density, yes. Because it'd be 40.
Because, you know, if it's 64 units, 120 people, well, you either got one car or one car, that's a
That's controlled,
density issue.
that's controlled by you. But if you want to go forward,
Right.
yeah.
So I just had a couple of questions, most of them answered. One was the rule of development on this. But then you mentioned the states leaning away from, you know, the smaller units toward, you know, funding
Or more family versus.
family versus
Versus-
seniors.
Just specifying number.
Okay,
And usually they like to see roughly 2/3 to 3/4 be 2 bedrooms or more.
okay. And then do you have an example, there have been any projects around that are good examples?
Besides the ones I did,
No, the ones you did are good.
No. Well, I am on the board of a nonprofit in Newton. We own, 2 former middle school buildings that were converted 20, 30 years ago to mixed income housing. They happen to have soccer fields and tennis. And a lot of parking. So, yeah, I mean, it's very common that, you know, towns have disposable property. And
Yeah.
this is one of the uses, I think, going back to the comment about, you know, who would love to do this. I think, you know, there's some developers who just love these old buildings, you know, they want to play architect. And, You know, so we might find somebody who's like, oh, I'm in love with this, I'm not sure who it is, but, you know, so it's hard to know, to see, but we see that a lot, and as my colleague was saying, there are challenges when you're dealing with an existing structure, so, you know, let's hope it's.
I just want to clarify, the gym is a non-negotiable item, is that right? We decided that?
That has always been left to recreation.
Well, the reason I'm asking is because it's a big building. On the other hand, for us to replace it would be virtually impossible. So I just want to put it out there that I think that that's not something, you don't want to go there, and it does bring money to that, general
Can you
city.
say that in the RFP?
Yeah,
Yeah, there was never any conversation that I've had that had anything to do with the gym anyway. That's your thing.
That's it, we're gonna open it up. I'm gonna say, I honestly, I don't have a great sense of how folks in town feel, besides, let's do something with it. Whether tearing it down, housing, all the different, so I'd love to hear folks. Yes.
and they're buying 10. Is that site sewer?
Yes.
Yes.
It is.
One of the problems with the 40B is it has pretty fluid families. They're generally 2 bedrooms. I am a big proponent of mixed use, 2 and 3 bedroom units, rental, and we desperately need in this town. Desperately need rental units so that when teachers start out at $45,000 a year, someplace that you can live. Try to get them into a $500,000 condominium, just doesn't fly. It just doesn't fly. So I understand that this is somewhat sacred and it's going to upset a few people. But the bottom line is the future. What is the future here? We need affordable rental housing for families. Just put them on. A 1 bedroom at a 40B or somebody that can apply for it is $2,000 a month. And that doesn't pass the street based test. It really, really doesn't. I understand about the facade. I understand that it is what it is. If some of it can be saved, great. But the idea of adding to it and bringing in 64 more units, in for dime, in for dog, make it work, make it right. And so we do it and make a decision. Not everyone's going to be happy. They're not. They're not. There are people, somebody said to me today, I don't want Scituate to change. Every time somebody new moves into this town, it changes because they moved in. So we have to bite the bullet, make some hard choices. They're not going to be popular, and this is a process. But I would have preferred handouts here tonight. Look, I really would have. Keep it as open and as transparent as you possibly can. And you know, I'm on CPC. I was there when West Green was proposed. I'm on the planning board, which even though so friendly 40B is going to go before zoning board of appeals, planners going to come with the state vote too. You always do. So that's where, you know, I'm hating for this, but we need it. We desperately need housing. This would be the perfect spot for it. Thank you.
I appreciate that, and that's, I will say, I think it's one of the goals of this board is to make, whatever the decision is, make a decision so we can finally move forward, whatever that will be. So I appreciate that. Anyone else, thoughts, comments, questions? Yes?
Word price for the minimum. I can decide on at least 2 gates, reuse building committees and work with Joel on citing and developing the current senior center. I'm glad that I was thinking about seriously thinking about doing something with this building. We have to do some, $100,000 a year just to write a check and keep it there is not a wise thing to do. I see some potential issues with what was presented tonight, but, you know, they're not major. Parking is a tight site. There's not a lot of extra land around there. I know that currently the senior center, I tried to get in there today. There wasn't a parking place to be had any. So I think to get the parking that you need, I think the developers are going to want to probably take down what is there and design a building where you can get in sufficient parking to serve the needs of people who need it. You know, I was at a CPC meeting last night and literally people were there talking about changing the complexion of the field. Pickleball people were there talking about converting those tennis courts to pickleball courts. So, you know, there's ways around those. I'm not saying that those issues are insurmountable. There are going to be some extending circumstances that you're going to have to deal with. And I really feel that, I don't know, in general, how much of the A wing is being used, Jim?
First floor.
First floor.
First floor, second floor is a storage.
My thought would be tear the A wing down and build town, most likely would have to build a facility for rec functioning for their needs. You know, that's another, that wing is probably what Joel, that wing is 50, 60 years old. Well, that's gonna be a continuing problem. You know, you guys looked at it 5, 6 years ago. There any better condition than the main part of the problem. So, you know, I think if we're gonna look, if we look at it, let's look at the whole site. You do what needs to be done to bring the whole site up to, you know, 2024 or 2027 or 8, by the time we get those standards. And I think it could be a wonderful site. I think we have a lot of potential. I'm glad to see that the town is looking seriously at moving forward, at least looking into it, see if there's a developer out there who says, yeah, I think I can make this work. It's something that we really town to agree on. Thank you.
Susanna Green, Bridge 7, First Road. I just wanted to bring up, the fact that when the center was looking at sites, one of the sites that was being looked at was Thriftway, and that was determined to be designated for housing, by the senior center could not build there. So I don't know, you would ask about other sites through, so I don't know if that is being looked at as well for housing, where, again, this is a very congested site. There's a lot of things going on. When the senior center was originally proposed to be built here, it was also proposed to be knocked down building, and sort of last minute got knocked down and put, you know, adjacent to our homes. So I definitely have concerns about too much use on one site, and we also have restrictions right now that protect us from, you know, like noise and lights and things after a certain point of time at night. And we put in that sort of density of housing, it's going to be a 24/7, you know, it'll affect all of us with traffic, noise, lights, we can have police, fire, you know, you name it. So there's that going on. We've got sports, we've got rec, parking, traffic, you know, there's a huge problem already here. And you had also mentioned that people might not want to vote for town hall there. I would vote for that because I think that's a better use where you're keeping it with the same daytime use. You don't need as much parking, and you could probably get it to park with every retail. So, based on that.
We should.
This one, the property in the Driftway, that's actually owned by the housing authority, owned by the town. So we don't own that, it's one of the issues, one of that.
Anybody else?
You could talk about this all night long.
Yeah, no, it's a good, I mean, again, we're trying to, this is the start.
Right, we'll post this to the website, it's too big to send everybody, the packet was, we'll post the packet, we'll make sure we post the presentation on the website so we can take a look at it. And really, it's just, again, to start the conversation, at some point the board will have to decide, yes, we want to go down the shore, or no.
You know, my fellow board members are gonna kill me when I say this, but honestly, folks, the public that's here, can you please talk to your neighbors, like, what you think we should be doing? We don't hear enough about something, I mean this sincerely. No matter where they are, you email us, say, hey, here's some of our thoughts, it's only gonna help the process. Please let us know.
I think having completed this work, I think it's very important. Gives us the tool to, throw it up against the wall and see if it sticks. And, before we weren't coming from a position of strength, and now we have that. So I think it was an appropriate step that's made it makes to push up.
So, Mark,
This was, Lori did all the work, I just wanted to be.
Thank you,
Lori. Wonderful as always.
Good.
At least the board now has some information to talk with me about, talk with residents about. We probably, I go back and look at Joel's original estimate for turning the building into a town hall. We could do the cost that we're seeing up with back of the album, what that would cost. Was it 40 or 45? Do you remember?
At the time,
Right,
yeah,
that
at the
was
time.
5-6 years ago. So.
I don't know if anyone here knows, does anyone have an idea of what the John Brew project cost per unit? So he's
Find
got
out.
2 bedroom units down there, I don't know if he's got any threes. But I'm just sort of curious to know, so that, when people see these big numbers, they're like, well, wait a minute, and if you're looking at it over the course of 30 years, it's not quite as daunting as it is when you.
I would find that out. Yeah. Also, anybody who didn't read the Sunday Globe, there's a big story in the Sunday Globe about what's happening in development and why no one's building now because of the interest rates, because of the costs. Just something to keep in the back of your head.
Oh, they're not doing something now, no, it's just sitting there.
Yeah. Costs
You
much,
have to
too much.
look at that, it's been a very attractive site at one point, but.
it'll come back around.
Yeah,
Things
things
do,
usually
drop,
do.
it goes forward.
Yes, you got two, yes.
One thing, everybody's upset with 7% interest rates. When I bought my house 50 years ago, it was 7%. And when I bought my house 40 years ago, it was 12.5%.
It went up to 19%.
Yes,
When I thought I
so
was a real estate broker, I remember.
don't worry about
Very
interest
interesting.
rates.
Yeah.
We're gonna get the last word, then we're gonna thank.
Just one last thought to Joel, we had numerous discussions in the site that's being developed, for senior center. We talked about when and if it will need to be expanded and enlarged at some point, or we just ask that whatever site development is being considered.
Oh, springs eternal.
I won't be around for that.
Good
You know, I think you said that the way the building was constructed and designed, there would be option to add on, but, I mean, Marshfield, they could double the size of their senior center in a matter of like 10 years. And our building is already going at max now.
Well, they built that senior center without being able to use the second floor, that was the flaw in that design.
Yeah,
So,
I just throw that out there, so you guys kept it in consideration.
Well, thank you all, the brief is really helpful. Yeah, it's very comprehensive, thank you.
Thank you, very nice.